Hey guys, welcome back to the Authentic Podcast. We're so excited that you've joined us today. Many of you have been tagging along with us weekly and you've been joining us on our journey. And so we just want to say thank you for that. And, we created this podcast because we are real people with real stories and we serve a real God. So feel free to like, share, comment, post these videos. We want the gospel in as many hands as possible. And so hope you enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the Authentic Podcast. We're so excited that you're here today. It looks a little different because I'm on Miss Lyn's couch and we're not on our couch, we're on her couch. I'm so excited to be back with you guys this week, and I'm so excited to introduce to you Miss Lyn
Hi.
and Miss Rebecca, who's here, who's on the couch pretty much every week. This is her mama, and we love them so much. We're so thankful for them. Miss Lyn, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you, but they might not know you. You were a missionary, and
Yes.
if you'll just tell us a little bit about that time in your life.
I'm happy to have these young women in my house today. They've been a blessing, a super blessing to me and to Rebecca. And it was a joy to know that they were going to be willing to drive all that distance from their house in the next city over to just talk to me today. And I thank you.
Oh, well, we love you and we honor you. And guys, also, I just want to say this. They have a media platform too. It's called Two Loaves Media. Y'all go check them out. They have some powerful teachings, and I know that they're going to be coming out with more powerful teachings. So y'all go check them out at Two Loaves Media as well. Anyways, without further ado, you can.
Well, my little missionary journey actually began in Hattiesburg, Mississippi,
Wow.
long way off from the Texas border. Believe me, this was pre Rebecca.
Wow.
um, the Lord had been nudging me for pretty much years
Mm,
that I would be ministering to Hispanic people.
wow.
And I thought, how many Hispanic people do I know in Hattiesburg? Like one, you know.
Wow.
And he was an acquaintance's dad, and they attended our church, that I attended at that time. So it was like things that were Spanish would attract me. If I saw a couch that had a Spanish design or had Spanish oranges and browns and reds in it in the storeroom, I'd think, I sure would like to have that couch at my house.
Mhm.
And it was like I was drawn to wrought iron,
Mhm.
black iron, and always things that were inclined to
Mhm.
that. My aunt was not from Mexico, but my uncle, my mother's brother, married a lady from Guatemala.
Mm.
So I always remembered that little bitty lingo that Aunt Daisy would use when she spoke English.
Mhm.
So I had the natural flow down for Spanish, even
Mm.
though I was not very good in grammar.
Mhm.
But I always could, my pronunciation was almost perfect in a lot of ways because I had listened to her talk.
Mm.
But the Lord had laid it on me many, many years before I actually made it to Texas
Wow.
that I would be working in that area. So eventually, Rebecca's dad and I, after we married, he started having dreams about a certain missionary that he knew that we both of us knew.
Mm.
And at this time, we were working in Monroe, Louisiana. He was on a workover job as an electrician. That's what he did. And he would do like power plants and manufacturing centers and paper mills and that kind of stuff. And so we talked to the pastor at that church we were attending at the time, and he said, "Well, if you keep seeing his face, my suggestion is that you have to sit down and have a talk with him."
Mm.
So we eventually ended up driving. I think it was to Missouri just to have a chat with this man.
Wow.
And Joe told him what he was feeling, and Joe had. I don't think he even had any idea that I had ever thought about Spanish people at all.
Wow.
So he said he reached in his drawer, Myron, he reached in his drawer and he pulled out a brown manila envelope with some forms. He said, I think you need to fill these out and enroll in language school to study Spanish. That's where you start.
Wow.
So we came back to Louisiana, went back to work at our job and attending our church, and we were on the praise team, and Joe played trumpet, I played trumpet, and we both sang. So we filled the forms out and just like Emma Lark sent them off to the Language Institute, which was in McAllen, Texas,
Wow.
like over about 600 miles or more from where we lived. And to our surprise, we got a big acceptance letter back. We were scheduled for I think it was August. Now, you can't believe how hot it is in South Texas on the border in August. And it's dry, and the
Wow.
tumbleweed is blowing down the
Mm.
streets. I mean, you get to think of the Southwest and Western
Mhm.
movies. That's what it was like.
Wow.
So we registered. I think we started in August of 1979. Uh, it was a 9-month program. So we had to study everything like missionary, medicine and hygiene, health and hygiene. We had
Wow.
to study grammar. We had to study the reading. Then we had a language lab where we used earphones and we actually had to read, and we were kind of observed by a teacher. Uh, we had those were wonderful, wonderful months,
Mhm.
and that was when I learned that when you say yes to go to do the work of
Mhm.
the Lord says yes to help you.
Mm.
And when we
Wow.
first talked to our pastor about what was on our heart, he said, well, we support others. And he said, our church is small and we can't really afford to give you much money. Would you still go on the promise of $25 a month?
Wow. Wow.
And we said, well, yeah, because
Mhm.
we knew the Lord had spoke.
Wow.
He had spoken. So uh, we we end up there. We had a 24-foot, really nice travel trailer, really,
Mm.
really nice. And I had decorated it inside and renoed a lot of the inside, not
Mhm.
physically, but the materials and the curtains
Mhm.
and the bedding and that kind of
You
stuff.
kind of made it your own.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, it was a bachelor pad before we married. So uh, we got to the campus and we had a reserved parking space for our camper.
Mhm.
And then I began to notice how God had started working.
Wow.
Joe had not gotten a job there yet. So we were dependent on what was coming in the mail, literally,
Mm.
till he could find a job. And the first thing that happened was groceries showed up on my door outside my camper,
Wow.
bags of groceries.
Mm.
And then he was asked one day, Joe, I need to borrow your truck. And Joe said, well, sure, here. And he threw him one of the men of the school, one of the leaders of the school, just threw in the truck keys. And now this is a big Silverado truck. It has
Mhm.
4 tires on the back and the normal 2 big tires on the front. So he borrowed the truck for the afternoon, and I'm not used to that, you know.
Mhm.
And after a while, he gave the keys back to Joe when he got back to the school, and Joe needed something out of the truck, and he walked out and he came back in. He said, Lynn, there's 6 brand new tires on this truck.
Wow.
And I was in shock. I thought, people don't just do that.
Mm-mm.
In the groceries, I never had people deliver groceries and leave it on my steps.
Wow.
And it was like the Lord began to speak to people to feed into our little tiny ministry that we had just started.
Mm.
And we weren't even in the ministry yet. We were just
Mm.
learning.
Wow.
So we were all involved for 9 months at the school. And then when we graduated, I thought, yay, we're headed across the border. And then the leadership of the school came to Joe And one of the prophets that was well known at that school came and prophesied over us that it was the will of the Lord that we remain at the school as part of leadership. And I thought, that ain't God. That ain't God ain't in this one. I know this guy must have gotten the wrong phone number here.
He called the wrong person.
He called the wrong number because I was ready to split. Well, the way that it turned out was our trailer in its little comfortable pad ended up across the little road under a great big huge shady tree. And we were there for another few months working, helping the school out. Joe helped take over the maintenance work, and I was helping take care of the grounds and the buildings.
Wow.
And so I had to work through that. That was, I did not feel called to do that. But in the process, we were making trips when we had spare time on the weekends. We would go across the border, and we started helping an orphanage in Reynosa.
Wow.
And so I had been a former hairdresser, so I would line the kids up and do haircuts, one right after the other after the other. This kid, they probably had 50 kids in that orphanage.
Wow.
Joe would be an electrician. He would help them when they were laying blocks, doing the actual construction. They had to add a bathroom on, or they had to maybe add a bedroom or something on. And then he would add help them to add the plumbing and the wiring and all. So we did that for months. And then I felt led of the Lord to get property. And the Lord began to talk to me about we needed a property on the border as a base camp to locate out of to work in the country. So a lady came to me, and we had been looking for property, couldn't find anything, and then we found something. And a lady came to me, and she said, "You know what? If you will step out to buy this property, I've got the money,
Wow.
and I will finance this for you."
Wow.
So the property that we found was this little two-story house that looks like the E.T. house over here on 181 that movie was filmed at. It looked like that little house.
Oh,
Had a
I think I know
wraparound
what you're talking
porch.
about,
Yeah. So little dormer windows overhead. So we found it. We had our check. She had written out for us to make a down payment. We'd go
Wow.
over to the realtor's house,
Wow.
his office. He had been there for months and months and months. That little house had sat there with maybe an acre or two with it. And so we said we came to purchase the home, and we laid the check down in his desk, and he pulled it up and he looked at it, and he pushed it back at us. And he said, "Would you believe somebody just walked in an hour ago and bought that property?" And I thought, the devil took our land. He bought it right out from under us. I couldn't believe it. I was very angry.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but God blocked that purchase because we needed more than that acreage, and we needed a much
Wow.
bigger house,
Wow.
and we didn't know it. We were thinking small, and God doesn't think small.
Come
And
on, girl.
so we started making trips up and down the roads again, looking for sale signs, and they had, there weren't any. And then one day we go up Raul Longoria Road, and there's a for sale sign. And this house has 4 acres, and it's bigger.
Wow.
It's a 2-story. Same. It was built in 1909 or 8. It had come up on the Rio Grande River on a boat. It was a Sears and Roebuck catalog house, pre-cut, pre-bundled, and each piece was numbered, bought out of a catalog.
Wow.
And then they had hauled it to that location, which was the Alamo Land and Sugar Company, and they put that house up on that property.
Wow.
And so it was called the Star Farm. And we lived in that old house. It was a historic house. I didn't know it when I moved in because, we had lots of things there that were not historic, like pest and. Anyway. Uh, one of my famous stories was I went in one day, a year or two after we lived there, and to the kitchen. I was cooking, and I reached in and I pulled open one of the drawers to get out a towel. And there's these little two eyes looking back
Oh,
up at
Oh,
me
heck
out of the
no.
drawer, and it was like a coon or something in that drawer. He
It was a possum?
possum, yeah.
ooh,
Oh,
Lord.
I'd be done,
Oh,
girl.
I
Lord.
was done.
Oh,
I
yeah.
shoved the drawer,
Wait, what
which
was your
is
husband's name?
screaming through the house, and said, "Joe, there's a
Yeah.
possum in the
I'd
drawer
be
in the
like,
kitchen."
Joe, you got some work to do. Come on now.
So
Hmm.
anyway, but he was really good. He took care of things like that, and
So this new house that you guys moved in, did she start, did you guys purchase this?
yes, we did.
Y'all did?
Hmm.
With her money? Or
Yes,
really?
yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And so she put the down payment up on it for us, and then
Wow.
we paid it out by the month to pay her back.
Wow.
Wow.
So, uh,
God was all over this because this stuff
Mhm.
just doesn't happen.
no, it
People don't
doesn't.
people don't deliver groceries to your
No.
house. They don't put tires on your truck,
No.
and they sure don't stroke a
Don't,
check for a
yes.
down payment for a house.
Yes.
It's like God was like ordering your steps, and even blocking something that was too small, for what He had planned. That's
Exactly.
incredible. I mean, that's
It's
literally
like the scripture that says he is author and finisher.
yeah.
Like he literally wrote y'all steps.
Yes, he
All the
did.
way from what you were going to eat to where you was going to go in that little that little driver to where you was going to live. And it's just that's so awesome how the Lord just continued to provide after the other of things like when you needed something that need was met, you
Mhm.
know.
That's incredible.
We were going to use this as a base camp to work in Mexico, but word got out among the missionaries that were in Mexico and some on the border that were there temporarily that we were going to be willing to let them use the property, if they needed to with us, and that we would house them while they were there. So Joe put in a mini trailer park behind the house.
Wow.
A guy donated a mobile home, a small mobile home, but they where they make them, they had gone in and put two doors on each end, and they put a men's side and a women's side, and they turned that trailer into a bathroom, public bathhouse,
Wow.
and delivered it to us and put it on the grounds. So we had a public
That's crazy.
restroom outside. We had missionaries coming and parking their campers out there, and some in
Wow.
renovated buses. We had trailers of all kinds.
Wow.
And so gradually they would come, and if they needed a place to stay, they would park there with us because they'd had to come out of Mexico to exchange their visas every so many months.
Mhm.
And then while they were on the border, they'd do their shopping, buy groceries, pick up medicines, pick up to chores, do odds and ends of stuff while they were there.
Mhm.
And they had a place to park, and they knew that it was not payment was not required because they may not have had the money anyway.
Mhm.
So we had a worship service every Sunday morning in the house,
Wow.
and so they all started coming over for the worship service. And the
Wow.
missionaries who were in other places in the border, while they were on the border, they would come over too. Well, my living room was about this size. It was packed with people. We were like shoulder to shoulder.
Wow.
We had an old upright piano that Joe, I don't even remember where it came from. He was a good musician, and so he played. We sang, we worshiped, and he said, Lynn, we really need to rent a place to have Sunday morning services. And I said, well, yeah, I agree. So we started looking. Let's find a place. Everything, the rent was just so high. We
Mhm.
couldn't afford anything. Well, one day I was walking through the house and the phone hung on the wall. Remember those old wall phones in the kitchen?
Mhm.
The phone rang and I answered it, and this man introduced himself. He said, Lynn, this is Eddie Ray Upchurch. Well, I knew his name, and he was from Georgia. He was a Methodist layperson, but he had this big manufacturing center that made metal buildings, huge metal buildings.
Wow.
And he said, uh, can I talk to Joe? And I said, sure. And so I said, Joe, this man, Eddie Ray, wants to talk to you. So Joe got on the phone and he said, well, yeah. He said, well, Eddie Ray, I appreciate that, but we can't even afford to pour a slab.
Mm.
So he hung the phone up and he came through and he said, I said, well, what did he want? And he said, well, he says that he's coming down here in February, and his son and daughter and his wife are coming, and they're bringing a building on the back of his truck. He had a crane on that truck, and he said they're going to put us up a church building in the back.
Wow.
And he said, I
Wow.
told him, Eddie Ray, we can't afford the concrete. And he said, well, Joe, don't worry about it. You've got the J bolts that you have to put in the concrete to anchor that building on. I've already got those in the mail. You'll get them in a few days.
Wow.
And he said the check's already in the mail to put down the concrete.
Wow.
I mean, it blew my mind away.
Oh yeah.
And so,
And y'all did not. So you knew of him, but you didn't. You never met him a day in your life.
no, Joe had met him because he had asked us. Somebody else told him about us, and he was helping. He was building a church in Mexico in a little village, and he had bought all the materials and the lumber and all that stuff. And he wanted Joe to help him wire it, do the wiring.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Joe, I don't have access to get my materials to the site where the church is going to be built.
Wow.
Can you do it on your truck? And Joe said, well, sure. That truck will go anywhere. A Jeep will go just about. And so they had built a church, small church in Mexico, and that was not his first, and it wasn't his last.
Wow.
And the interesting thing about it is his last name was Upchurch.
He putting up them churches.
Well, he had been putting up churches all over the world, and we didn't know it.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, on the date agreed upon, in February, that truck pulled onto our yard and backed into the building site. Of course, the slab was already there. And they started offloading that metal with that crane off that truck. They put up the steel first, anchored it to the J-bolts, anchored it at the top, where it goes up and then it goes over and it anchors in the middle. It's bolted together. Then they started putting the roof on. Of course, that has insulation that has to be glued to each slab of metal. You've got a slab of foam or insulation that's glued to it. And here's the daughter-in-law. She's up on a ladder helping glue that foam to that metal, and she's up there, and she and her husband, one of the sons.
That's incredible.
And within a few, maybe 2 or 3 days, they had that building up, complete.
Wow.
And we had our first service standing in front of it before the walls were even on.
Wow.
Wow.
The roof was there, but no walls. I've got some old pictures.
Mm.
And so we were able to move our little congregation of missionaries out to the back. Well, as soon as the local colonias, the people in the little subdivisions that were lived around the Mexican people, they began to come for service. So our services became Spanish.
Wow.
A few months later, he said, Joe, I know that your church is growing, and we think that you probably need some Sunday school rooms. So they came back on another trip and added a room to each wing, added wings on the side. And then a third trip, they came back and they put another big extension all the way across and put that whole thing together with another wing.
Mm.
We named the church La Bodega de Dios because the church I had attended in Hattiesburg was called the Storehouse.
Mm.
Well, when I translated the storehouse into Spanish, it was La Bodega. And it means a place of storage and provision where the food and the wine is kept.
Wow.
So we named it La Bodega. I found a sign somewhere, stripped that thing down, took it apart, and I lettered it La Bodega de Dios, bright golden sign. Joe built the frame and put it out outside. Well, a pastor later, a Hispanic pastor that was new to the border, he was helping us with the work, and he came to me one day very seriously, and Joe, and he said, "Can y'all tell me why you named this the La Bodega?" And I said, "Well, yeah, the church we attended was called the Storehouse, and so we named this La Bodega." He said, "And it means," and I told him, and he said, "No, no, 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 no. That's not what that means down here."
What did you name that church?
The bar.
That's hilarious.
Hey, you gonna have
The
drunks coming
place
up there
where you
getting
go buy
saved.
Coronas and Dos Equis and
That's funny. No wonder your church was growing.
Anyway, he made me abruptly realize that what we had officially named La Bodega, we had chartered it with the U.S. government.
That's funny.
We had an ID number with the government, and we had our 501c3 approval for that under that name. And I thought, we have to amend that charter now
Oh gosh.
and
Was
put
that
another
hard?
name down
Hey,
there.
hey, they showed up for the spirits and they got the Holy Spirit.
Anyway, we renamed it to La Casa de Dios. We amended it. It was approved, and then I officially had to take Joe took the yellow sign down, and I had to clean it all up and re-letter that sign again.
So God's now provided a home, a church for you. What did day-to-day life look like? Like what did
Oh, busy.
really? So what kind of things did you guys like provide or do?
We were there a year, and then I got pregnant with Rebecca,
Wow.
and she was born in August in the heat of the
Ooh,
Ooh, girl.
the
that was rough.
year.
I bet you
Yeah.
were ready for her to
Oh,
just come
I
on
gained
out.
50 pounds.
Oh Lord.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And August is hot down
Oh,
here, so I'm sure it's super
dry
hot.
hot there.
Oh Lord.
You know. So anyway, that's not the end of the story. Another an old a motel came up for auction, and Joe bought the blocks, and he and a mason friend of ours that's laid brick and did mason work went over there with their hammers, and they took that building apart, loaded it up on trailers, hauled the blocks out to our place, poured a slab, and built a dormitory and an office
Wow.
and a bathhouse
Wow.
out of blocks. So now we had an official office to work out of, and we had, instead of people sleeping upstairs in my house, that now we had a dormitory we could with beds in it we could put them in. Our first refugees that began to come, um, let me pause right here. The Lord said to me one day, "Lyn, there are thousands of people that are going to be coming to this border, and they have nobody to take them in.
Wow.
You prepare a place to take them in until they can get resettled."
Mm.
Well, and he said, you look around and you become very aware of your surroundings and what's going on here. Don't just go through day by day and not be aware of what's happening politically, religiously, and every other way.
Mm-hmm.
Within a short time after the Lord spoke that to me, we had a knock on the door, and it was Border Patrol, and they had a young man they brought named, I think it was Herdeman, and they had wanted to bring him out there to stay because he was illegal. He was from Nicaragua.
Mm.
They did not want to lock him up with the prisoners because he was just a teen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And our friend, who was an attorney, was an immigration attorney. So Border Patrol would let Jim, our attorney, have that boy on his signature because as a part of the court system, legally he was attorney. He could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So he would get the boys out, under his signature, and then he would bring them to us, and Border Patrol would let us keep them and house
Wow.
them. So Harriman was our first young man. Uh, and then I noticed one day he was sick. He was very sick. He
Mm.
would just lay and shake and shake and shake and shake and shake, and like he was having chills.
Mm.
So one of the men from Connecticut who was down helping us for a few months, Jim, I said, Jim, we really need to get him to Dr. Suderman, who was a missionary doctor on the border.
Mm.
And so Jim took him to Dr. Suderman's, and when they got back, was on meds, and he was beginning to the shaking was beginning to kind of stop, and
Mm.
he had malaria, I think.
Wow.
He was in a real mess. And so,
Mm.
fortunately, Dr. Suderman had done enough mission work. He knew what was wrong with him and got him
Yeah.
treatment right away.
Mm.
He was the first, and then gradually other boys began to come. And this was when we really were needing a dorm. And so that was the reason for buying up the motel and
Mm.
moving it. Um, the other boys came, and every morning, that that big green table right there, with the lazy Susan in the middle, that was
Mm.
Becky's grandmother's.
Wow.
She gave that to Joe, and we hauled it all the way from Laurel, Mississippi to San Juan, Texas, to our mission, and it was in my dining room. The boys would line up around that table,
Mm.
and Joe would have Bible study with them,
Wow.
and I would be in the kitchen making sandwiches or breakfast or something for them, and I'd go sit in the middle of that turntable, and while they were having a Bible study, they were consuming the food, like, by the handfuls. They were boys; they could eat.
Mm.
And so Joe was teaching a lesson one day, and he said, "We're going to study this morning on the pearl of great price." How profound. I'm in the kitchen, I'm listening, and one of the young men raised his hand and he said, "Brother Joe," in Spanish, "what is a pearl?"
Wow.
Now, here's a young man who probably came from the mountains in the interior. He did know what a pearl was,
Wow.
probably never seen one.
Mm.
So that was our first awakening to the fact that we had to start simple.
Mm.
You can't start out very complicated because they had not been exposed to the Bible. They
Wow.
were not taught. Some of them may not even could have read or write.
Mhm.
So one day, this young man, had a guitar, and he played all these worship songs. He knew all the worship songs, and I got to wondering, this child's from Mexico, or some were from most of Nicaragua. How does he know these songs? And so Joe asked him one day about it, and he said, "Well, Brother Joe, my daddy's a pastor." And he said,
Wow.
"I've been running from the Lord a long time."
Wow.
See, he fell into our trap on the border.
Wow.
And the Lord just works stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then one day, one of the first adults was a man, an adult, and Border Patrol brought him out to the house. They called first. Said he tried to escape. He was trying to get at the bridge. He was trying to get across, and the immigration down there um, uh, evidently saw him before he reached the U.S. side, and he got scared and he jumped off the bridge and broke a leg.
Mm.
So they took him to the hospital, had him bandaged up, and said, "But we don't have any place to keep him until he recovers." So he was brought out there, and we had our first adult.
Wow.
And the way that this worked, things in Nicaragua were really, really bad.
Mm.
The official government there was friendly to the United States, but a guerrilla leader formed a guerrilla army, and they went in and seized control of the government, and they ousted the president, and
Wow.
they were communist.
Mm.
So they began to clamp down on the people in the country.
Mm.
And of course, communists and Christianity don't get along.
Mm-mm.
He's still president of that country today, and his wife is a witch.
Mm.
And things have gotten terribly, terribly bad in Nicaragua.
Mm.
But at that time, it was just getting started. But
Mm.
but they would go down the roads when these children were coming from school, snatch them off the sidewalk and throw them over in a truck and take them way up in the mountains and put them in training to be soldiers.
Wow.
And they just didn't come home. And so it became so prevalent, the parents started selling anything they could afford to sell and trying to get those children out.
Mm-hmm.
Some came out on foot, some came out on trains, by buses, some were flown out to get them to the border where they would be safe.
Mm.
First, we had the young boys,
Mm-hmm.
the guy with the broken leg. The next thing that began to happen were we noticed that the women started to come. And the
Wow.
first time I noticed I realized was that it was no longer safe for the women.
Wow.
So they would grab a child up or two. I don't know how they got out. I have no idea. But they would,
Mm.
first one showed up, knocked on my door. I went to the door, and here she has a baby on hip, and I think another little girl.
Mm.
The baby had not had milk in 3 days.
Wow.
It only had the diaper that it had on. She had no clothes, no
Mm.
luggage, nothing, just her and the baby, and the kid,
Wow.
other child. So we took her in, and we noticed that the flow became the teens, the boys,
Mm.
and then because it's the women and the babies. After a few months, then the men started showing up. It had gotten so
Wow.
bad they could no longer try to retain a home and keep a job and keep their livelihood going. They had to flee Nicaragua. So then the men began to come.
Wow.
Um, Eddie Ray called again and said, Joe, you need another building. And he said, the check's in the mail, the J bolts are in the mail. Go ahead and pour a slab, and he told him how big to pour it. Told him the date they would arrive with another building. And this time they came. This building was closer to the house. The church had been further out on the property. This was a commercial kitchen. It was as large as the first two parts of the church together, probably in footage. This building was pointed and down this way, but he sprawled it and put it up in two halves. So he first put up the one half of it, which was going to be the kitchen and the dining room, and then he came back later and he did the second half and joined the two together.
Mm.
He got the thing finished. We got the sheetrock put up inside. And I thought, well, this is going to be a kitchen in here. I've got to have something that will repel water and grease and that kind of stuff in the kitchen half.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to I think it was Home Depot, to the paint department, and I thought I really need epoxy paint, but it was really expensive back then.
Mm.
And I went into the oops section where they had blended paint, and it was the wrong color. And I found neon orange. So I thought, okay, and I took it back and I went in the kitchen and I looked around and I thought, okay, I don't want a straight line. I want one that goes this way, low here and up here, high over here. And we're going to put the stove over here, and the sink's going to go right up against that epoxy wall. And we had a little island that was out there,
Mm-hmm.
and the room was divided into two halves, the kitchen half and then the dining room half. We got the paint up, and then we got a call from some guy, young guy up north that had a chain of restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, somebody told me about your ministry, Joe, and I'm changing out the equipment in one of my restaurants, Now, his restaurant, those that he had was like McDonald's. So he had those McDonald type booths, that's the hard bottom and the scoot back. And he said, "Can you use any of this equipment?" And Joe said, "Well, absolutely.
Wow.
We just built a new dining room and kitchen for the church, and we really need some equipment." So on the agreed upon day, the big truck arrived and backed up to that building. Joe it had uh, at that time, we just had a regular size doors on it, but they were wide. He backed up and he swung the doors open on the back of that truck. There were booths, orange,
Wow.
matched my paint,
Wow.
Crazy.
booths and tables, restaurant stuff.
Mm.
Didn't look like it was used at all.
Wow.
And I said, "Well, God even likes color."
Yeah.
And
I
I had this big wall ornament hanging up here that Becky's Aunt Wilma had given me, and it was in like daffodils and oranges and greens and yellows.
Mhm.
That orange.
Mhm.
In came a double or triple stainless steel sink with a big sprayer hose on it.
Yes.
Wow.
Commercial. Then they hauled in a refrigeration unit that had like 3 doors on it, glass doors.
Wow.
I mean, you could stack food in there for a long time. And then we had some extra metal shelving that came. So all the food that we eventually would be getting from the HEB Food Company, who began to donate, the Howard E. Butt
Wow.
Company. If you've ever been in an HEB store, it's like Publix.
No, I
Wow.
hear about it from like influencers, and it's like Trader Joe's. It's like very fancy. Like HEB is like high up there.
Anyway, everything that came in that door matched for that kitchen.
Wow.
That is so awesome.
And then after we got the equipment in there,
You can't make this stuff up.
No.
we had 100-pound bags of pinto beans, 100-pound bags of rice,
Wow.
and Ziploc bags. And so Rebecca, Tammy, or Debbie or I two of the girls that worked to help us, would load those things up, and then we'd take them and put them in the back of the van, go down in the Colonia. We'd open the back doors up, we'd park, and I was under the steering wheel, and Becky was in the back with the boxes, she was not but about 6, handing
Wow.
out food to the hungry.
Wow.
She commented one day that I made her work.
You worked her down. Every mama does. I can tell you that much.
Anyway, then Eddie Ray came back, and he brought the other half of that building, and it was mounted and put up to join to the one we already had. And the back side of that was a big long workbench for Joe's electrical tools, and he had a lot of tools, which were donated.
Wow.
That's
He
crazy.
already had a lot, but a guy called him. It was an old friend from Houston. He said, "Joe, I'm going out of business. Can you use any tools?"
Wow.
So all these tools came.
Wow.
And then another church called up north, said, "We have a clothing collection ministry here. Can you use clothes?" And we
Wow.
said, "Absolutely." So on the designated day, the transport truck backed in, the 2 doors on the back flew open, and here were bags from floor to ceiling, 55-gallon garbage bags, black,
Wow.
full of clothes. Some of them had irons in them, things people had donated that they weren't bad, long drapes that went to the floor. You can't
Wow.
believe what people sent. Shoes, brand new shoes that were donated.
Wow.
So that all went in the front of the warehouse.
That's incredible.
And I mean, it was like when you say yes to God on $25,
Mhm.
you have taken that first step, and then He does the millions of other steps that come behind that.
Yeah.
I we couldn't have afforded any of that. No, and
No.
there's no way. There's no
God
way.
provided all of
$25
that.
turned into an entire homestead that was completely given to y'all, which is crazy.
Mm.
Like that's
Not only
crazy.
were we providing clothes for the poor people all around us for 8 miles, but we were able to take Patty, who worked for us, helped us out. She was a volunteer. She would take loads over into Reynosa and distribute them to people over in
Wow.
Reynosa. Um, then we found out there was a food bank. The HEB food bank was in McAllen, and the head of that food bank was the Episcopal pastor priest, and Joe got to know him really really well, and we became one of the outlets of that big food bank. And once a week, one or two of the women from our church would go in and volunteer to help clean up things, sort food, and then we would bring back van or two load of food to our pantry and store our pantry, stock it with canned goods. Once a week, we would get cheese, bread.
Mm.
Uh, I, I can't tell you all the vegetables and stuff would come
Wow.
in banana boxes. You know, banana boxes about this
Mhm.
big, lo- loaded with food.
Wow.
And we would go through and we would make up. Debbie and Tammy would out in the kitchen would make up boxes, and
Mhm.
then people would come to the office, and I would take an application. How many kids? You know, where do
Mhm.
you live? How many children do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. And they would get a box of groceries, a big box of
Wow.
groceries. So, you know, they were all on food stamps anyway, but that
Mm.
extra box of groceries helped.
Yes.
Um, I can't describe everything that God did.
Mm.
I'm sure that I'm leaving a lot out,
Mm.
but everything that we needed was provided.
Wow.
Do
That's
you have any
incredible.
questions?
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, me and my mom always say that when you sow into the kingdom, when we invest into worldly things, you may get a return. But when you invest into the kingdom, you are sure to get a return. And God will
Absolutely.
provide everything that you need. And I just want to say this to you. You know, as I've been sitting here, I was thinking about this. You haven't seen the full reward until you get on the other side of heaven. You're going to see the full reward of what you sowed. And you sowed a lot. And as I'm sitting here today, I purposely didn't watch or videos that you've done on this before
Yeah.
because I wanted to hear it
You need
straight.
to, because she's got pictures in there of that work and
Hmm.
the parts of the ministry as it came.
But hearing this today, I didn't know this stuff. It has
Mm.
blown me away. I'm literally like, wow. I'm tripped out from the bottom to the top. I mean, everything in between was provided, and y'all were heaven sent to those people.
Yes, and I want to say this too is like how grateful those people were of even the ones that like I just think like I don't even know how to explain it, but how much that this blessed those people, those women, those children, those men, all of those people that y'all took in and y'all sown into not only to of their physical needs but their spiritual needs. I can't even imagine what their
Mm-hmm.
hearts were doing. You know, to be going out of that country, of where it's this, crazy, communist country into a place like like it's just crazy how you see all of these things as a blessing, but you don't realize how much of a blessing you were to these people off of that $25. That $25 didn't just affect you.
Yeah, it
It
did.
wasn't just a blessing for you, but it was a blessing for so many other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking with Pastor Chris last week or 2 weeks ago about how your yes isn't just for you. And I believe that, but I can say genuinely I didn't realize how big of that was until we sat down and had this conversation about how much of your yes, like how many people it affected, how many families were probably saved from horrendous things because you decided to say yes to Jesus and out of faith on that $25.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ended up having all of these things And that, to the worldly eye, there's no way, you know. We can't even fathom it in our brain.
Tootie, it even goes further than that. On a personal level, on a spiritual level, the men who came out, and probably some of the women, got deeply into the Word. They got educated because Joe was teaching them. When things calmed down enough, they felt reasonably comfortable enough to return south.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them went and started churches of their own
Wow.
works, see. Now,
Girl.
we don't know that cornucopia of fruit
Mm-mm.
that was a result of them getting to sit on those pews.
You don't know the harvest.
Okay, those boys, we don't know where they went, where they ended up.
Mm-hmm.
People who needed a living, they lost everything to come to the States.
Mm.
God took care of them because
Yeah.
some of the men in Georgia who were wealthy were farmers.
Wow.
They provided jobs, promised jobs for them,
Wow.
and the government gave them green cards
Wow.
so they could go to
Wow.
Georgia and work and make provision because they were
Wow.
fleeing communism.
Mm-hmm.
They won't do that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Canada sent a representative down to our place,
Wow.
and she took applications for people who wanted to come to Canada. Their country was taking them in.
Wow.
Wow.
So some of them got to go to Canada.
Mm.
We had a contact on the border of Guatemala, um, a pastor down there, and Joe got to go preach in his church. We drove all the way across Mexico from the northern border to the south and ministered everywhere in between
Wow.
to missionaries who had needs that Joe
Mm.
could meet.
Wow.
Like trucks were broke down, cars were broke down.
Wow.
They needed electrical work. Churches needed to be
Mm.
built. He
Wow.
was able to do all of that.
Wow.
We had a ham radio in our house. It was nothing to get a missionary call from Central America or Mexico in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Joe, I'm in so and so town village on a road outside of the village, and the engine just went out in my truck.
Mm.
Can you get me some help?
Mm.
Joe said, yeah, I'll get you some help. If I can't come, I'll find somebody that can. Within hours, he had located somebody who had the means and the wherewithal, the tools or whatever, who drove himself to that location, found those people, and towed that truck out of where they were in the jungle or wherever and got them back to the border and then found a mechanic to work on their vehicle.
Mm.
Women down there, missionary wives, were doing laundry, some of them in their bathtub. I did in the trailer. I was washing clothes in that trailer, and because their washer was broken, I didn't have a washer. And those women, Joe could fix he could repair anything that had wheels or bolts or bearings in it, or it didn't matter. He could fix it. This is where my techie comes from over here. And um, we even one time on the side of the road, a back wheel on our truck was whining and making this big loud noise, and Joe got pulled over and we got out, checked the tire, and it was hot. It was burning hot, the rim was.
Wow.
So Joe gets the tools and he eases the tire off, and when he pulled the tire off, all the bearings fell in the sand.
Wow.
And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And the Lord spoke to me, get all the bearings and clean them up. The grease had gone dry in the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
He got a towel, paper towel, and we got all the bearings out of the sand. And I got all of them cleaned up. And he got wheel grease, and he packed those bearings, and we put them back in that wheel, and we drove off.
Wow.
I mean, it's just like our angel was always there
Mm-hmm.
to show us what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many things I could tell you.
Mm-hmm.
one, the pastor that was lived in Weeksla, which is like close to Tapachula and the Guatemalan border. He said, "I want y'all to come down here for a visit." Well, we did. Joe preached. He preached. He said, "Brother Joe, I need to go to this little village down right on the border." And he said, "It's hard to even get in there with the Jeep, but your truck will go." So the three of us, hopped in the thing, and the time that we were supposed to be there. And this little tiny church was pastored by a lady. Uh, I've never seen a building like that before or after. They had taken at the lumber mill. They had taken and they cut pine slabs off the tops and the sides, to make a square piece of lumber. Well, the slabs they keep and they make roofing out of it, or they put it on the sides of buildings and just lap it over. Well, that's what her church was made of, was pine tree slabs.
Wow.
Behind her church was this pine tree slab swinging bridge that crossed the river gorge to Guatemala. So we have service that night, and it was a real tiny little building, maybe the size of this room. And she had a house full of people, and I felt somebody rub my hand, and I reached over, and it was a little short, a woman with the rebosto, or a scarf on her back, with a little tiny baby, little bitty baby,
Wow.
because the Indians have little small children. And it was one of the little boys sitting on the bench, and he was rubbing my hand, and he had never seen white skin before.
Wow.
And he wanted to touch to see what it felt like. He was just curious.
Wow.
Cute little kid. Well, the next morning, we're out front of the church, and we're standing around talking. Our friend, the pastor, the village jefe, the chief, it's Jefe, which you don't go into a village unless you go through the jefe first to get permission, because he's the oldest man there probably, and you need to talk and find out how his children are, how many. Is his wife okay? How's everything here in the village? And you do small talk for a good while, and you inquire, and you get to be known before they will give you permission. So the day we had done that, prerequisites the day before.
Was it ever dangerous doing that with any of them?
That's my story.
Oh, okay. That's your story.
I'm just giving you the preliminaries right now.
Uh-huh.
So we're standing there chatting our second day, and we had slept in the back of the truck. We had two big toolboxes with foam rubber on the top, and Joe kept his tools, his electrical tools, in there, and his fishing rods. So we had slept out in the truck that night. Well, the next day, it's a beautiful, clear day, and we're chatting. And I look out of the corner of my eye, and here comes a Mexican border guard who had been patrolling the Guatemalan border looking for drugs and criminals and people that had come across illegally. Now, you don't fool with these guys. This is Army. They were in their green Army attire, and they came marching up to where we were all standing, and he said, "I want to see your visas." So Joe pulled out his, and I pulled out mine, and he went over our paperwork, and he said, "What are y'all doing down here?" And we said, "Well, we were invited to come and visit this little church." And so about that time, I looked to find Brother Mendoza, and he's going over the mountain. The pastor that took us in there is leaving. So we couldn't ask him to give reason for why we brought him there. He disappeared.
Wow.
So I'm sitting on the tailgate of the truck, swinging my legs, like a teenager. I started to reach for my purse to get something out, my wallet or something, and the Holy Ghost said, "Do not move. Do not get anything out of your purse. Do not move." So I'm swinging my legs. And they had guns on us by that time. And the little local Heffy, he didn't know what to do. Our pastor, who was much more fluent in Spanish than we were, he's disappeared. And so I think they found a Coke or something that they wanted. It's been so long ago, but finally I guess it was the Holy Ghost. He decided that we weren't a danger. They got in the truck. One of them got up on the tailgate behind me, and he went all through the back of the truck and didn't find any thing in there that was illegal. So he crawled out and he nodded, and his commander said okay, and they marched off. But I never forget the pastor who was our friend walking off and leaving us there with those army. We could still be there locked up, in a prison, and nobody ever know where we were. The Holy Ghost and the angels of God are what protect you when you are on assignment. God forbid you go where you are not called to be. Because if God does not call you to be there, their raven may not show up to feed you.
And that's where I was going next. You have to, from this, now I've never done this, so from the sound of it, you've got to have that angel, or the Holy Spirit, when you are charting unfamiliar territory, because this is unfamiliar. I mean, you're not from this place. You don't know.
No.
It's so way different than over here, and you need supernatural help. I mean, that right there, you need supernatural help.
Yeah, and you need to be familiar with the voice of the Lord, because if you weren't, you would have never known not to dig in your purse,
John Osteen, the most famous message I ever heard him preach was a place called There, There. And I actually got to handle some of those tapes because at one Thanksgiving meeting, we were in missions meeting in his church. Joe went up to do wiring for them at Lakewood.
Wow.
And they had built a brand new bookstore, and I was sitting in the floor with all of his tapes on the floor, sorting the tapes out, getting them in order. So when the bookstore opened and the people came in for the conference, they would all be in order, alphabetical order. And I was doing the bookcases and the jewelry counters and all that. The place called There, the message is that when God spoke to the prophet to go to the place that he was going to show him, that he would send the ravens to feed him. And the message is, what if he had gone someplace else?
Wow.
There is a there that God will speak to you to go to. But if you think that, I like so-and-so better, I think I'll go over there, the grass is greener. Or I might go there because the offering might be bigger. Well, you know what? I just like that person over there better. I'll just go over there and fellowship with them. Or I'll just drift over here to this church and I'll just visit with this church because it just seems good. But did it seem good to the Lord, and did he call you there? Because a prophet does not go where the prophet chooses. The prophet goes where he's sent. Y'all don't ever forget that. You go where you're sent, not where it feels good. And this is the reason that you have the covering of angels and you have the protection, divine protection of the Holy Ghost, is when you are where God puts you.
Yeah.
Another situation, I was walking through the house one day and the Holy Ghost spoke so plain. He said, Lyn, there's the young man coming today, and he's going to need to buy that trailer. Well, he finally put it up for sale. I didn't want to, but we needed the money. And he has no place to go. He has no home of his. And I know what you've got on the price on the trailer, but whatever he he can afford to sell it to him anyway.
Wow.
So Joe walked through, and I said, Joe, the Holy Ghost just spoke. Somebody's coming to buy that trailer today. And the Lord said it didn't matter how much money he had to sell it to him anyway for what he could afford. Sure enough, that afternoon. And here comes this little young Mexican, dressed like a cowboy. His hat, his little big belt buckle, and his little tight little jeans. He was just a darling little kid.
Oh.
And he wanted to look at the trailer. And Joe said, sure, come on, let's look. So I stayed in the house. And he went in, he looked around, and he looked around, and he come back. And I had dolled that trailer up. It really looked cute inside with my neon orange director's chair at the table, you know. And he came back in. He said, well, I want the trailer, but I don't think I can afford that. And Joe said, well, how much do you have? And he said, well, this is what I've saved up. I've got this much money, but it's not what you want for the trailer. And Joe said, well, I'm going to sell it to you for that.
Wow.
And then I told him, I said, Lyn, let me tell you something, young man. The Lord told us before you got here that you were coming.
Wow.
And I want you to know that the Lord loves you, and he loves your wife, and he cared enough about you to make provision for you to have a home, a place to live. He did this just for you.
Wow.
And he explained, he said, I'm living with my parents, and we have a baby, and she's living with her parents.
Wow.
Because we can't afford to find a place to live where we can be together. I don't even know if he knew anything about the Lord, if he went to church. I didn't ask him. But he learned that day that God cared enough about him to go before him and make a way. He paid for the trailer, and then he towed it wherever they were going to set it up. I didn't ask.
Wow.
But God makes a way. He'll
Yes.
send an angel before you to prepare a way for you before you ever get to the door to exit.
Amen. Girl, my hair's, you can't tell it, but it's standing up. Wow. I'm tripped out, girl. I can't believe this. But, do you have anything else you want to add or say?
No, I think I have probably said more than I should have already.
No, girl, I think it was just, it was hitting me, girl. Just hit me this whole time. That is powerful, Miss Lyn.
Trust and believe
powerful.
and obey.
Amen.
You know.
Do you want to pray? I mean, do you feel led to pray for anybody or
Or
say
do you
anything?
have anything to say to those people who are afraid to move because they might only be getting that $25?
Oh, I said that to two people who recently relocated.
Wow.
To into full-time ministry other than where they were.
Wow.
I'll handle that carefully, but y'all are familiar with that situation. But I told both of these couples, I said separately, do not be afraid to step out. One was a really young woman, a young wife. I said, whatever God has for you will be enough, and you'll never want. You may think about it and have it in your heart that I need to go do this, and it's there. Before you can even step out the door to go purchase it or buy it or whatever, it's there. There are times when there's something I want. I'm thinking, you know, I really would like to have one of those things, and within a few minutes or the next morning, I'll feel like go to a certain store, and I'll tell Becky, you know, we need to go to a certain store today, and we drive up there, and I walk in, and I'm looking around, digging through the stuff, and there it is.
That's happened to me before too. This is a funny story, and I'm not going to talk long, but I was thinking in my head one day, I was like, wow, I'd really like a new comforter for my bed.
and I needed new sheets. Well, Mama went to Sam's and she bought a comforter for her bed and sheets for her bed. We get home and they're the size for my bed. And it's like so funny. It's like those, Karma always calls it little God winks that Joyce Meyer talks about, but it's like those little winks of like, you won't even be like, oh, well, God, I really need this. You'll just think it in your head of like, you know, I could use that right now. And then it's just provided for. And it'll make you laugh because it's like, wow, he cares about even my comforter. Or the fact that I need sheets. He cares about all the, like, it's not just the big things, but like,
No.
it's the little
A
things.
parking place in front of the
Yes.
building,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
when it's raining.
An outhouse. You know? I mean, I know that's not a little thing, but I mean, like, you see the church and you see the house and then you see that little outhouse that y'all needed. And it looks a little bit smaller than the other buildings, but it's like everything, like, there's so much to like smile about, you know? Of like just every need being met. You know what I mean?
And when those things happen too, I do feel like you build a trust with God because you can't provide for yourself. You have such a need. Only God can meet that need.
Yep.
And when He does things like that in your life, there's a trust that you have with God that you know I'm dependent on you because I can't even depend on myself right now, you know, for these things. But anyways, but this was powerful. And if you don't have anything else to add, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This was powerful, and thank you so much, Miss Lyn, for telling us these stories. I know that this is going to go forth, and I'm going to look back on this video one day, and I'm going to remember the Lord's provision. I know that. I'm going to look back on this, and I'm going to say, wow.
Everything I've told you is the truth.
And so anyway, so I honor you for being on here tonight, and I thank you so much for telling us all this. This was powerful. But anyway, so thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bless.
Hi, you guys. We are so excited you joined us this week for this authentic podcast. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it if you don't mind. And just remember to join us next week for our next podcast. Have a blessed week and stay authentic.